You've probably heard that getting really rich takes some kind of genius idea or a massive, risky bet that just happens to pay off. But what if I told you the real path to incredible wealth is actually slower, simpler, and way more powerful? Today we're going to break down the one force that has built more real, lasting fortunes than anything else: time. So, let's just start with a basic question. Forget the flashy tech billionaires for a minute. How does a regular, ordinary person
somehow become one of the most successful investors in history? It's a real head-scratcher, right? It just doesn't seem to add up, especially when you find out the answer isn't what you'd think at all.
Nope, it wasn't about having a genius-level IQ or being able to predict every little wiggle in the market. You know, some of the smartest people on Earth go completely broke trying to outsmart everyone else. So that's not it.
And it definitely wasn't about making some wild all-or-nothing bet. This is not a story about high-stakes gambling that paid off. In fact, it's the total opposite. The secret was just doing something incredibly simple for a very long time.
All right, let's pull back the curtain on this billionaire's simple secret. We're going to dive right in with a case study on none other than Warren Buffett. His journey is, well, it's the perfect story to show exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, look at this. This is the timeline of Buffett's wealth. For decades, his progress was fine. It was steady, but nothing explosive. But then, look what happens after age 65. His wealth doesn't just grow, it goes completely vertical. Get this, over 90% of his entire net worth was earned after he could have started collecting Social Security. He didn't suddenly get smarter, something else was quietly doing the heavy lifting. So, what was that something else? Well, that brings us to section 2. The force that was at work has been called the eighth wonder of the world. It's the engine behind pretty much all long-term wealth, and it's called compounding. So, what on earth is compounding? Well, put simply, it's growth on top of growth. It's your money making you money, and then all the money that money made starts making its own money. So if you invest $100 and get a 10% return, you have 110. But then next year, you earn 10% on the whole 110. It's exactly like a tiny snowball at the top of a really long hill that eventually becomes an unstoppable avalanche.
Let's break it down even simpler. It's just 2 steps. Step 1 is obvious. Your money earns returns. But step 2 is where the magic happens. Those returns don't get spent. They get put right back to work, creating a bigger base, a bigger army of dollars to go out and earn even more returns for you next year.
But, and this is the big but, this is the critical catch, and it's the reason why so few people really harness this power. At the beginning, that snowball is tiny. The growth is, you can barely even see it. It feels painfully slow. It's boring. And it is so tempting to just quit and go look for something more exciting. And that feeling right there, that impatience, brings us perfectly to our third section, why patience pays. Because the real secret isn't about understanding the math of compounding. Nope, it's about having the psychological strength to just let it do its thing.
This slide just lays it all out. It's really 2 different paths you can take. Over on the left, you've got the turtle, the compounding mindset, thinking in decades, staying put, letting time do the work. And on the right, you've got the rabbit, the gambler's mindset, chasing quick profits, always switching strategies, trying to time everything perfectly, and usually just burning out.
And here's the most important point. Every single time someone with that gambler's mindset panics and sells or jumps to the next hot thing, they're not just making one bad decision. They are literally grabbing their snowball, walking all the way back to the top of the hill, and starting over with a tiny little piece of snow. They hit the reset button on their own wealth, again and again.
So how do we stop ourselves from hitting that reset button, right? How do we avoid that trap? Well, that leads us right into section 4, the long-term investor's playbook. These are the practical habits you need.
These are the fundamentals. And notice not one of them is about being a genius or predicting the future. It's all about consistency, protecting what you have, and patience. But the most important idea here is this one. Time in the market always beats timing the market. Endurance wins, not brilliance. Think of this slide as your cheat sheet. It really boils everything down. On the left, you've got the actions that make your snowball grow. On the right, you've got the actions that melt it. It's honestly that simple. So you have to ask yourself, are my habits feeding the machine, or am I the one who keeps breaking it? So as we wrap things up with our final section, time is your superpower, let's just focus on the single most valuable asset you have. And spoiler alert, it's not how much money you make and it's not how smart you are. It's just time.
Just let that quote sink in for a second. This idea, it changes the entire game. The goal isn't to get the absolute highest return in a single year. The goal is to get a pretty good return for the highest number of years possible. It totally shifts your focus from short-term performance to long-term endurance.
So the ultimate takeaway is this. Real lasting wealth is not a lottery ticket. It's a garden you have to tend to. It's built through the slow, steady, and sometimes boring process of being consistent, year after year, decade after decade. You just have to focus on not stopping, not on being the fastest. You know, the power of compounding is there for absolutely everyone, but it only rewards the people who actually start. So the question isn't about what could have been yesterday, it's about all the decades you have ahead of you. The next best time is right now. So what are you going to do?